Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the mini-series here on the channel, Cartoon Conference. Today I'm going to be talking about Regular Show. Last time when I mentioned Adventure Time, I also mentioned Regular Show as one of those two shows that I feel like really followed me from my childhood all the way to adulthood. And it just really had a very special impact on me. And I just knew out of the gate when I wanted to do this series that those two shows were the very first ones I wanted to talk about. Because it was just so good. I remember very first time it came on, I was like, oh wow, this is so funny, because it just felt like it was such a weird show, but it's it just was also so good. And then very first episode, they said the P word. Yeah, Rigby said, but he's gonna be pissed. And I remember later on, whenever they dubbed that over, I was just like, wait, what? They changed it, and I realized they did that with a few of the other episodes. But I'm like, I kind of get it, but I still thought that was kind of cool. And then I just love that relationship that you see Mordecai and Rigby have, where it's they're both slackers and all that, but it's one could be more responsible than the other, but the fact that they always still come through for each other. And I just loved all the random characters that they had, because it's with Adventure Time, it's in this fantasy sort of area, but then Regular Show, it's this just everyday kind of situation. They're working at a park, and then it's all of a sudden you have a blue jay, a raccoon, a gumball machine, a yeti, a green guy, a ghost who gives high fives. Pops was the most normal looking one out of all of them, and he was still basically a lollipop. So I just thought it was so cool seeing just this random mix of all these obscure looking characters. And I love how later on I realized that some of these characters were actually created by J.G. Quintel before. Pops and Benson were part of one, not Pops, Mordecai and Benson were characters he used in this one cartoon that he created for a project, and then he did the same thing with Pops for another one. So just to see these characters come into this greater thing, and that's what I also loved. One thing they did in the finale is whenever you see reality starting to break apart, you see them start to really break the fourth wall with the whole idea of how the show's made with all the post-it notes, and then how you see Pop sort of in his past life, because that was the cartoon. It was the man from Lollyland, something like that. And then I love how you take how after all that time he took those attributes and he put that into the show. That actually became part of it. And then just so many things that happened in that show I thought was so cool. It was one of those things where for a brief period of time, because I was so young, and it's when you're young, you want your parents to do things with you, you want to share this. My dad would watch Regular Show with me, and a couple times he even actually enjoyed it. So that's one thing I feel I really enjoyed about Regular Show, is that I feel they really kind of pushed the boundaries of what they could do with it. They basically took it as far as they could to try to make it appealing to adults as well, but without actually doing anything inappropriate for kids. So it's obviously still aimed at kids, but they did stuff that made it appealing to adults. And then another thing that definitely really stood out for me was the music, because so many cartoons that you see, it's oh, they'll come up with their own original music, whether it's meant to be something serious, or it's just oh, some joke parody or something. But no, I love the fact that they actually used real songs. In fact, some of the songs that I actually really like now, I first heard in Regular Show. There was all the way at the very beginning, they used the song "Working for the Weekend," and then they used the song by Poison, "Nothing But a Good Time," and then the finale, they had the song "Heroes" by David Bowie. All these were songs that I'd never actually heard before, but then sometime later, I went back and really paid attention. When I heard them in Regular Show, I'm just yo, I recognize this song. This is actually really good. I really like this song. And then there was a bunch of other songs that I already knew, so I just love that vibe, because I'm pretty sure J.G. Quintel said something about how, oh yeah, that's just the music I listened to growing up, and I can really relate to that, because that era really is kind of appealing to me. I know that obviously there's all sorts of new music nowadays, and I'm not trying to be a hipster, I'm not trying to be an anti-conformist, but it just never really appealed to me. I really do just kind of like that classic stuff, so that's what I thought was so cool, seeing a show like Regular Show that's, aimed at people that were my age, but, played that older music. And then I feel it really does have very good character development throughout the whole show, character development and plot development. Because I guess in terms of plot development, it started off where it's for so long, all it is just, oh yeah, all these guys working in a park, and then out of nowhere, the final season, it's like, oh, there's a bigger thing going on here. Like, there's so much purpose. Like, they get sent up into space because they're part of the space program, but it turns out that even that has a greater purpose, because it turns out Pops is actually an alien, and that he needs to fight anti-Pops, so he needs to be up there so that he can train. So it's like, oh wow, so much that's happened throughout the show seems so small compared to this now. And then to see Pops have to go through so much, because like he goes from just being this silly person that doesn't seem to know what's going on to having to be the most important and powerful person ever. Like, Pops has to save the universe. And then I love how Pops just kind of like Pops' the solution to everything, because they're saying, Pops, you need to fight him, like you need to train. And then in the very end, he realized, no, that's not going to work out. So Pops saved the universe by being himself. Like, he did what just came naturally to him, being a loving, kind person. And all he did was hug his brother. They put aside their differences. They sacrificed themselves, but Pops knew because it was for the best. And I just love his final words to Mordecai and Rigby, saying, like, trust me, this is a happy ending, and I need you to take care of each other. Like, it was just such a good finale for Pops. And I love whenever they put up the statue where it's like, oh, he chased butterflies. It's like, oh, he chased butterflies. He loved to laugh. He saved the universe. He was our friend. Like, it's so meaningful, because like it feels like it fits Pops so much. And then one of my definitely favorite characters was Skips. First of all, I thought it was really cool that Mark Hamill did the voice for him. When I realized that several years after the show started, I thought that was actually really cool. But it's like Skips is always like so calm, cool, collected. Like, he always knows what's going on. Like, he's the smartest person there. And I love whenever we just very casually get to see some of Skip's backstory. In fact, one of my favorite episodes actually is Skip's story, where we find out his whole backstory with Desdemona. We find out how he first fought Clorigbane. We find out how he met Gary, the Guardians of Youth, how he became immortal. And it's such an emotional thing. Like, whenever I see that episode, I actually start to like choke up a little bit, because just seeing Skips back then, where all he wanted to do was be with this woman, but then he lost it, like, or he lost her. And I remember I saw this thing where it's like JG Quintel listing off like his top 10 favorite episodes, and some of them actually a lot of them aligned with what I would probably put in my top 10, and Skip's story was one of them. So it definitely was just a very good episode. I love the fact that it can do such serious things, though, that can really get at you. And that's why I feel like shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show really stood out to me, because they're not just, oh yeah, we're going for the cheap and easy laughs. It's like they actually have good humor, but then they can also do really serious stuff that can get you interested. It's not completely episodic. And I know another episode that I really enjoyed was the Thanksgiving special, because the whole idea of Mordecai and Rigby ruined everything, so they need to try to fix Thanksgiving, and then it's like how Thanksgiving means so much to everyone, and then how everyone is so sad because things aren't going to work out. And then I love the song they sing with it, where like that actually gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. And then seeing how everything works out in the very end, where they're all there for Thanksgiving, it's such a good feeling to me, especially because I personally really love Thanksgiving, because I feel like Thanksgiving is just something where there's not so much commotion. It's just you sit down with your family, you have a nice time, you have this good food. It's very relaxing. So Thanksgiving definitely has a soft spot, special place in my heart, and that's what really helps that episode out. And the one episode that always really sticks out to me as well is Exit 9B, where so much happens in that. Like, it's the beginning of the new season, and it's like, holy shit, so much just happened. Like, first of all, we meet Thomas. Well, Thomas the intern. But then it's like out of nowhere, like you see the park just get taken over, all these people lose their memories, and then Mordecai and Rigby have to try to save everyone. So then you see them go through and they try to find everyone and try to get them to get their memories back. And I love the whole idea of they brought back every villain that they'd ever fought up until that point. Like the contractor, the guy who was trying to buy out the park. It turns out that he was actually Garrett Bobby Ferguson's son, and that he was doing this to like avenge his dad, saying like, oh, I don't do this because I have a beef with the park. I do it because I have a beef with Mordecai and Rigby. So he brought back all of the enemies from the underworld that Mordecai and Rigby fought, and then he wants to try to kill them. And I just love that huge fight because it just looks so good seeing like all these throwbacks at that point, seeing like all the villains, all the friends that they made just going up against each other was such a satisfying moment. And then seeing them, like seeing how Thomas comes in and he helps save everyone, like they accept him as part of the group, that was really cool. And let's see, what about more characters, I guess Muscle Man was always such an interesting character to me. I feel like he kind of stood out. I feel like that was definitely a character that stood out to my dad a lot because of the whole idea if he just took off his shirt and whipped it around. I think that every now and then, whenever I reference that to my dad, he would actually pick up on it. And you know what? I honestly really love his My Mom jokes. One of the people that was on my floor in college, he actually watched regular show too. So every now and then we would make My Mom jokes to each other. So that was always pretty funny. It's like, yeah, they don't make sense, but it's like, it's just funny though because of the fact they don't make sense. And then you see Muscle Man kind of go through a lot where it's like, yeah, this whole time he just really loves to party. He's just like this loud, obnoxious guy. But then you see him go through his development of he tries to take things more seriously every now and then. He's committed to Starla. And then in the finale, you see that while he was in space, Starla actually had a daughter. So then you see him come back and tear up at seeing his daughter. And it was just so satisfying with that. And then I love the moments whenever you see High Five Ghost and Muscle Man's friendship because in a way they actually kind of go back similar to how Mordecai and Rigby did. Of how it shows that they weren't really friends at first, like they kind of hated each other, but then they became friends again. Well, they became friends in the first place, and then they were always with each other. Like they always had each other's back, like Mordecai and Rigby did. So to see just how far that friendship really goes, the fact that they're so committed to each other, because there's the episode when they lost their memory. And then Muscle Man's like, okay, well, I don't really know this guy, but I guess we were friends, so I'm willing to fight for it. And then High Five Ghost is just like, I'm sorry, I just can't see it. But then Muscle Man went so far as to almost kill them just to try to become friends with him again. So that dedication that Muscle Man had. And then Benson, I always thought Benson was an interesting character. The other day, I looked up a list of most evil cartoon characters ever, and I think Benson was within like the top 20. And I just started laughing so hard. Like, that was hilarious because I'm like, it's so true. Benson is kind of an ass. Like, he's not evil, but he is still kind of a jerk. Like, in Pokemon, I even started nicknaming my Blastoise Benson because I thought to myself, Blastoise just looks like the kind of guy who is a boss. He just looks like the kind of boss that, like, looms over you, like, oh, hey there, Jim, did you get your expense reports in? So I figured, like, what's the most boss-like person I can think of? And I immediately just thought of Benson. And like I said, he's just kind of always a jerk, like he's always yelling at them. And I love the moments whenever you see how he actually really cares about them and he kind of gets involved. Like whenever Benson got demoted, so he was just a regular worker, but then whenever he realized that Susan was just driving everyone into the ground, so then he came in and he told everyone, like, I need you all to start slacking off. So the fact that he was kind of like standing up for everyone, saying, I know that you guys slack off sometimes, but it's actually a good thing because it has a good balance. And then whenever he's driving away, he sees Mordecai and Rigby leave and he doesn't even stop, he just smiles. And then the episode whenever they were trying to get Benson a gift for being such a great boss, and then you see him like standing up for his employees, like he starts fighting all of those guys just to help them out. And then I also just love the moments whenever Benson is like so nerdy, he just seems so pathetic, because it's like, oh, it just really kind of knocks him down a peg, so it just seems so funny. But again, I also really love those moments when you see him kind of grow and be part of the group, like he really kind of sticks up for them, because it's like so many times it feels like he doesn't want to be involved, but then he actually does get involved and he really gets into it. Like one of my favorite moments for Benson, actually some of my favorite moments in general, is whenever you see him do the music, because it's like that's something that Benson has a lot of passion for. He's really good at it. So whenever they formed the band because they needed to defeat the Summertime song, and he shows up saying, you forgot the most important thing about a catchy song, it's got to have a beat. Like he starts playing the drums, I'm like, wow, that was actually such a powerful moment for Benson, because it's like, damn, Benson's kind of a badass. And then whenever he does the whole 150-piece solo, and then like he gets everyone's respect for that, saying like, wow, you actually pulled that off, that was amazing, we're sorry we doubted you. Like that was just so amazing in my opinion. Let's see what other the characters were there. And Eileen, that's definitely one that's I guess worth mentioning. How at first she was just such a minor character, and then Rigby was like, "Eh, I don't really care for her." But over time, he actually started to really care for her, and then you see how far he went for his relationship with Eileen. He went back to school just so he could try to get his high school diploma to impress Eileen. He went all the way to China for that. And then whenever he took Eileen to the prom, because he's like, I want to share this experience with her. And I love the moment whenever they get back from space, and then you see him just pull Eileen in and kiss her. The fact that he went from just thinking Eileen was kind of annoying to having such strong feelings for her. And again, the fact that they just made her a lot more relevant of a character, because at first it was like, oh, she's just Margaret's coworker and friend, but then she actually was around a lot more than Margaret at some point. And then the fact that she was even in space with them, I thought that was pretty amazing. And then I guess another thing to bring up is Margaret. Like I remember when I was younger, I'm thinking, yo, I really hope that Mordecai ends up with Margaret. I've wanted to see it happen, so I was kind of bummed out whenever it didn't work out. Like not even in the long run, but just as it first happened. But then they introduced CJ, and I was thinking, whoa, that's actually like she's actually a pretty cool person. I really like their relationship. So I know at first I was into Margaret, but I actually did kind of want to see him end up with CJ. Like that was actually I really did like that relationship because she was someone who was so laid back. She was so cool. I felt like she really got along well with Mordecai. Like Margaret, I get that he really kind of had strong feelings for her, but again, I feel like CJ was just such a good match for Mordecai. Honestly, though, can we talk about the fact that Mordecai is such a tragic person when it comes to love? I know I talked about this sometimes with Finn in the Adventure Time episode, but like Mordecai really does kind of struggle with love. Like he spent so long just chasing after Margaret and not being able to do anything, and I feel kind of bad for that because I can kind of relate to that. Where it's like you have such strong feelings for a girl, but it's like you have no idea how to say it. So then the whole idea of the episode where he was in the friend zone, like that always is such an interesting episode for me to watch because he finally breaks out of it. Like he manages to get out of the friend zone and he actually gets something going with Margaret. And then I don't know. I just kind of feel like it would have been good if in the end he actually did end up with Margaret. I'm glad that they at least did kind of give Mordecai a wife, but I'd say that's one thing where I'm kind of like, that's a bit of a thinker because they did give him a wife, but it's just some random character that we have no idea about. Like we don't even know what her name is. We don't know what she sounds like. We don't really know that much about her except for I guess that she's maybe into art. So it just felt kind of weird. I think that they could have brought back Margaret. They could have done something where Mordecai being gone in space for so long, Margaret really started to worry about him, and then seeing Mordecai come back, that made her realize how much she cares about him. I think they could have pulled that off. I think that would have been a bit better, but again, I still definitely really like the finale of the show. I think that it's still handled very well. I'm glad that Mordecai at least did get with someone, and I don't know. I just love all the minor characters that they eventually have come in and out. Like there's just so many iconic moments. There's so many times I just find myself quoting the show. Like there was the one episode whenever there were those police guys that they were hanging out with, and they always like keep saying some stupid stuff, and they're like, just busting your chops. So it's like every now and then I'll rip on someone and I'll say that to them, and then every now and then I'll hit them with the whoa. Like I always did that when I was younger because I always thought that was so cool. I remember every now and then on the bus, one of my friends and I who was also in the regular show, we would play punchies. I mean, we wouldn't do it for that long because we were kids, so we couldn't really handle it as much. And then I told you guys about the nominees that we did in 6th grade. Regular show is definitely one of those shows that we brought up a lot. And I remember at one point, I even, like, one of the funniest things that happened was in the episode Punchies when you see Skips punch Rigby so hard that he went into the flagpole, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. We used to call you the One Cheek Wonder." Like I thought that was hilarious. I actually printed out a picture of that and hung it up. I know that sounds very weird, but it was just that funny to me. Oh my goodness. And actually that's another thing. There was another song in that episode that actually stood out to me. It's such a good show. Like I remember actually crying at the finale because I think that was like right before I was probably like maybe junior year, so like I could still definitely get emotional about that stuff because I was like so sad because I remember thinking when regular show ended, I really only have Adventure Time left. Like to me, it really was down to those two shows that I started watching when I was a little kid that followed me all the way to adulthood. So I was like so sad because of the idea that Pops was dead, obviously, but then like seeing this show end that was on for so long, and then just the way that they end it with the 25-year park reunion, you see all of them come together one more time. You see everyone kind of has their happy life. Like Benson ended up with Pam. They have their pets and everything. Skips is still just kind of having a good time going around fixing, being useful. Muscle Man and Starla still live in the park and they have a bunch of kids that just have fun. Rigby's with Eileen. He gets to have fun with his kids. You see Mordecai finally pursued an art career and got married. High Five Ghost and Celia pursued music careers. Just everyone has these great endings, and it's like, yeah, Pops unfortunately didn't make it, but you could tell that he was happy with the way things ended because he knew that it was good that he saved everyone. And then just watching them walk off, and then just seeing them with the statues of Pops and Mayward, it was just such a very powerful moment. It definitely, like, it really just hit me when it ended. I actually, like, I'm definitely not ashamed to admit that I cried because it really was a part of my childhood that was finishing off. I really did think to myself, I only have Adventure Time left now, and I could kind of tell at that point that it wasn't going to be on for that much longer. So, yeah, I definitely really do like regular shows so much. I remember probably about a year and a half ago, I went back and I watched it all the way through, and I did not regret it at all. I think I actually watched the final episode on New Year's Day, and I think that's what made it seem so impactful for me. And even then, when I watched it a second time, I cried. Like every time I watch it, I don't necessarily cry, but I like choke up a little bit because it really was just such a very powerful moment. I know I keep saying that, but it's so true. I really did just enjoy it so much, and I definitely do not regret choosing this one to talk about. I can't really think of that much more I have to say. Again, it's one of those things with Adventure Time. There's not much I can think about that I dislike. I guess maybe, like I talked about, just the way they handled some of Mordecai's relationships, which I guess in the same way is kind of how it happened with Finn. And then, I don't know, I guess maybe they could have made some characters more relevant than they were, made some characters less relevant, but I ultimately really do love the show. Like, regular show, it's anything but. So, yeah, that's definitely going to wrap things up right now. If you watched the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I know that it's not anything special. I know that I'm not the most electrifying person, but it is just very nice to be able to just sit down, talk about cartoons, just relive all these past memories that I have, all these great moments that I can recall, and get to share them with who's ever willing to listen. So thank you so much. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button. If you want to see more, subscribe, and I see you guys when we talk about the next cartoon. So, peace.